Looking forward to what you got.
One of my college jobs was working for the dissident feminist author Christina Hoff Sommers as she wrote a re-release of her eerily prescient 2000 book, The War Against Boys. Men, Christina warned, were falling behind, and the results would not be good for women or for society overall. As the women's movement pushed for some obviously necessary correctives to American culture, especially in education, the system came to be designed in ways that benefited girls, but at the expense of men. After not letting us vote or open credit cards on our own, women didn't find the plight of boys a terribly sympathetic cause at the time. Plus, many of the problems were happening in real time to kids at very young ages, making it super difficult to assess the consequences beyond projections. But now the results of this experiment are in, and they aren't good. Richard Reeves of the Brookings Institution released his new book assessing those results this week in Of Boys and Men. Crystal and Sagar interviewed him here on Breaking Points, and I did about an hour with Richard last week over on my podcast at The Federalist. David Brooks wrote about the book at the New York Times, conceding, "I learned a lot I didn't know." Brooks boiled down this new information to 2 points. One, that boys are much more hindered by challenging environments than girls, and two, that policies and programs designed to promote social mobility often work for women, but not men. Those are Brooks's words. Now, those two, of course, go hand in hand. Boys struggle more with, for instance, poverty and single parenthood than benefit less from the programs designed to help people overcome challenging circumstances. Christina showed how this was manifesting in seemingly harmless ways inside K-12 schooling, from curtailing recess and rough and tumble play to using emotion-based teaching methodology in math and science that helps girls but makes school a little bit harder for boys. Boys end up hating school, underachieving, and turning to drugs or crime or other bad habits in higher numbers. They leave high school in a hole that's then hard to dig out of, and then leave college with debt and go right into a hookup culture that disincentivizes monogamy, into a world where fulfilling work is as hard to come by as purpose and meaning. What a lot of people don't talk about in this context is sex and dating, but of course these variables are very salient. A recent survey that made the rounds this week after being covered in Psychology Today found 53% of single men said fear of being creepy reduces their likelihood of interacting with women. Now, some stigmas, like creepiness, are obviously healthy, but this shows a widespread irrational fear that is seriously throwing a wrench into American communities. Brooks's column ran alongside another column in the Times this week, one that asserted in the headline, quote, "Dating is broken. Going retro could fix it." This is just one in a long, long line of recent versions of the same argument from progressive women that retro norms may have been healthier for women. Christine Emba of the Washington Post wrote Rethinking Sex. Louise Perry of the New Statesman wrote The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. BuzzFeed last year published a fascinating article about why Gen Z is, quote, rethinking sex positivity. The Times column published this week cited a 2010 study from the Journal of Family Psychology that found, quote, couples who waited until marriage reported not just less consideration of divorce, but also higher relationship satisfaction, better communication, and superior sex when compared with couples who began having sex within a month of their first date or before they started dating. The story quoted one of the authors of that study suggesting, quote, rapid sexual initiation often creates poor partner selection because intense feelings of pleasure and attachment can be confused for true intimacy and lasting love. With a few caveats, economist Marina Adshade said back in 2019, when you crunch the numbers, quote, married people appear to be healthier and live longer than those who are single, separated, divorced, or widowed. They have better mental health, fewer health conditions, and recover faster from illness. In the past, said Adshade, studies found that marriage provided more health benefits to men than women, but that effect is disappearing, and more recent studies find pretty similar outcomes for men and women. All right, so all of that said, if men are too afraid of being creepy to set that process in motion, women are in big trouble too. The left is wrong about the way some traditional norms, ones built on healthy expressions of human nature, brought about more fulfilling lives. The right, though, is wrong about how gravely the economic hollowing out of the American economy exacerbated the destabilization of sex, marriage, and community. Just this week, the Times also ran an insane article on the death of the starter home, which developers pin on red tape that removed financial incentives for them to be built, for those homes to be built, and left home ownership much further out of reach for millennials. Men's wages have remained stagnant while women's have grown in recent decades. TVs and phones have gotten cheaper while homes and healthcare have gotten more expensive. Student loan debt is skyrocketing. Men are suffering disproportionate deaths of despair at higher rates. We're more comfortable in a material sense, but less happy. And we're treating the biological reality of sex differences as something that's less important when having a healthy recognition of those differences, and even those similarities, is actually what would serve everyone better, instead of policies and norms that try to plug a square peg into a round hole and a round peg into a square hole.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.